and sit down if you like virtually. So let's start with a few words of introduction. Good afternoon to everyone. If you're in France, in Dakar, or in West Africa, or in Africa in general, thank you for participating, focused on decentralized cooperation. Very happy to have you here today. It's our last session of the Climate Chance Summit 2021. The schedule has been very dense, and we're very happy that you will participate here. So before moving forward, I'd like to inform you that this session is recorded, and we also have interpreters. So you can use the globe icon at the bottom of your screen to choose the language that you prefer. My name is Antoine Gillot. I am the coordinator for the Climate Observatory for Climate Chance, which is an organization founded in 2015 to reunite all of the non-state stakeholders, companies, territorial collectivities, NGOs, all of the stakeholders that want to work together concerning greenhouse gases, adaptation to climate change. We hope to create a favorable environment for climate change and climate action within this summit and also within our organization. Over the past years, we've put together summits in Africa, bringing together all of the stakeholders to exchange about their experiences, to really set in stone how we're going to roll out our projects. So if you'd like to suggest a project, please send it in to us. And also we hope that we can move forward together on working groups. These are action coalitions, and that will be worked upon in the various ateliers. So we're going to talk about decentralized cooperation, DC, today. So I'd like to give the floor to Boris Tannhauser, who works at Platforma as an executive executor, and I'd like to give the floor to Mr. Boris. So good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for taking part in this session this afternoon. It's always a big pleasure for myself to be a moderator, not only for Platforma, but also for the entire organization with Sub-Saharan Africa. So I will then look at what we're doing and then give the floor to the various panelists. So, and I welcome everyone here today, this afternoon. So I'd like to share my screen here to give you some ideas as to what Platforma is and what is the Mayor's Convention also. So CCRE is the oldest and largest association of territorial collectivities in Europe. It's an organization of cities and regions put together in 1951. It's represented in 41 countries, 60 associations, and it represents more or less 130,000 municipalities and regions in Europe. As you can see here in the graph, it's the European section of the global organization of the CGLU, which is made up of the various regional organizations. So CCRE is the regional section of CCLU. So what do? We put together plaidoyers, and we're trying to influence European legislation, which has a large impact on our cities, municipalities, and regions. And we also try to share and exchange, create an environment of exchange, and also knowledge exchange for our members, and also for the regional collectives. So what is Platforma? We are the biggest pan-European coalition of territorial collectivities, and we regroup national, European, and global associations which are working in cooperation. We were founded in 2008, and we have 29 partners in all of Europe, which are very active, very invested in what they're doing, and they are very active in decentralized cooperation. We also are hosting the Secretariat of CCRE, and we're also part of a strategic partner of the European Commission and also of the Global Task Force of the United Nations. So what is our mission? We should try to define or co-define development policies of the European Union and also international agendas. We also try to foster awareness within the various populations, not only within the territorial collectives, but also with the mayors and their population. And we work on international cooperation. And we also try to regroup collective intelligence. So what do we do in Platforma? We have a political analysis, stance taking, dialogues, ateliers, exchanges. So you can see here what we do. And we can also look at our website to see what we do. So thirdly, but what's really important for this session is the Convention of Mayors of Sub-Saharan Africa. We also look after this within CCRE. It's financed by the European Union, which supports Sub-Saharan African cities, which helps them in their fight against climate change. And this is done throughout the mayor's framework agreement. So one of our main initiatives is to be part of one of the stakeholders in the local action for climate. And this is part of the Convention of Mayors for Europe and also for Africa since 2015. CCRE has been involved in Africa and in Europe as one of the main plaidoyeurs for including the regions and the cities in the climate action framework. We organize partnerships. Another example is a partnership between Karlsruhe and Kampala, which was recently put together. So here is a small introduction as to what we do here at Platforma. Following, I am very happy to give the floor to our panelists, Madame Moreau, who is an ambassador for the regional collectivities, and she will give us a 10-minute presentation on French-Senegalese cooperation, on the projects they do. And maybe we'll be able to meet up with her in Africa in 2022. So, Madame Moreau. Thank you very much. Good afternoon to everyone. So it's a great pleasure for me to participate in this special session for Decentralized Cooperation, DC, within the Climate Chance Summit. And Climate Chance is an organization that I really like, and they are very engaged. And I'm a little bit disappointed that we were not able to go to Dakar to participate personally in this large summit, but we are all more than aware of the circumstances which force us to use this virtual conduit, if you wish. So from my organization and from the Senate, one of the main senators here in France, we really congratulate Climate Chance for putting together this summit. And I would like to congratulate all of the participants who are coming from various workplaces and circumstances, research, cities, organizations, etc., platform, and all of the various organizations that are participating here today, and all of them who work together with the local collectivities in France and also in Africa. So if I could follow Mr. Tannhäuser's example, I'd like to give you a few details as to what we do. So what is the external delegation for the territorial collectivities? It's part of the French Foreign Ministry. And we have a day-to-day partnership activities with the collective territories in France and their associations to foster their work in international cooperation. And also, as has already been said, we ask that if people have projects, send them in, because we also co-finance various projects. So this Climate Change Summit is seen as a perfect chance to bring together all of the various local territories who are fighting against climate change and who are lobbying for the measures that were put in place in Paris. And they also raise the awareness concerning this subject, which is very important, not only for citizens, but also for the territorial collectivities. We put together quantified measures, holistic plans, goals. The notion of what we are doing was really put in the foreground. We looked at space management, looking at waste management, water, green spaces in the urban environments. We spoke about this a lot at a congress that was recently held in Marseille. And all of the territorial collectivities are impacted by these questions, not only the big cities, but also different types of collective territories, for example, and this includes the rural areas. So what is sustainable development? It's something that is very current, and it is being looked at in a decentralized manner. Over time, we have tried to organize various projects that we have received and also co-finance them. This was a climate project in 2015 that we started with. This started with the blinders put on the COP 2021. There were various projects in Africa in 2019 and 2021. And we're also involved in the fight against climate change that we can see in all types of projects that we receive, including decentralized cooperation projects that we receive. And we see that the impact of this question is getting bigger and bigger as time goes by. It's linked up with France's general policy. This was included in the law from the 4th of August 2021 here in France. Environment and climate change was one of the transversal priorities in this law. All of these questions are interlinked, and also we can find solutions for them in an interlinked manner. We have to look at a balance between adaptation and also the fact that these phenomena are getting worse. We know that the cities cause 70% of greenhouse gas emissions. So it's important that the cities look at this. It has to be looked at through the multilateral institutions. And we cannot foster incompatible investments that are not in line with the various goals that we have. So we try to finance ecological transition and to orient the various investments, very low carbon projects. We have to foster research and development, and we also have to lower our carbon footprint. And there are also the various cooperation projects that the local collectivities put together amongst themselves. Let's look at some examples. So examples that are financed by the DECD. I hope if you are able to look at these examples, it will give some ideas to the networks that are with us here today to really roll out new projects. So sustainable cities in Africa for 2019-2020, 20 projects concerning various African countries. I won't give you all of the names, but let's look at a few. 2 projects concerning circular economy in Burkina Faso. We'll work together with the Rhône government in France, and a Dakar project, and Mali, and a project with the larger Parisian region with the various African cities. These are called intelligent, sustainable cities. Various stakeholders. It's quite old. It includes various institutions here in France, especially the regional authority in Les Hauts-de-France department in France. So there's also a sustainable city project with Bordeaux. So there are various projects that I've just given you concerning sustainable cities. Let's look, I'd like to give you a few more examples. One project with Porto Novo in Benin, linked up with Cergy-Pontoise in the north of Paris. We also have a ready-made project which is supported by the various stakeholders and the local territories. There's a project from the Global Fund for Sustainable Cities. It concerns various West African countries. They try to reinforce their capacity to obtain international financing that work on sustainability through decentralized cooperation. There's another project that has been put together by the IRF, a Francophone organization that works in various Francophone African countries, helping them reinforce their projects concerning sustainable urban planning. There's another project concerning waste management and circular economy proposed in 2021 by Solidarity Horizon in Normandy here in France. And they cooperate with various cities in Senegal. And I use this to move on to the next point, to look at the cooperation with Senegal. So before going to Senegal, I'd like to say something that this project looks at actual things that are rolled out in concrete terms, and also tools used to finance the projects. And I think it's important to underline that this shows us how really we work in decentralized cooperation, meaning hands-on and financing. So let's look at the French-Senegalese cooperation. Be assured that I won't go into detail too much about this, because the speaker after me will go into detail concerning this question. But simply put, The decentralized cooperation between France and Senegal has more than 160 partnerships, including 113 French cities and 107 Senegalese cities. We are very well planted in the various regions. There are partnerships that have been in place between France and Senegal since 1974, between Saint-Clair, for example, and Agnam-Civol, which exists since 1988. I'd like to talk about the common tool that we use for decentralized cooperation between France and Senegal. This was put together in 2015. It was the first bilateral tool used by France in Sub-Saharan Africa. It was financed by two organizations. This gave way to yearly projects that come in and that are selected. It involves the Senegalese decentralization, which started in 2014 with the election of President Macky Sall. So it's we've reached the third level of decentralization, and the transfer of powers from the central government to the regional governments, which reinforces the capacities of the cities and the regional territories. It fosters knowledge growth at the local level. So within this project, or this tool that I've just spoken about, France has been working very hard with Senegal, and we are trying to foster the emerging, the development of Senegal. The funding is done at a 50-50 level between France and Senegal. Of course, we use this shared funding and the governance. We try to increase the reciprocity of exchanges between the two countries. The seventh project rollout, which took place this year, within this framework, we received 15 projects, of which 7 partnerships were new. This was very encouraging for us, because we see that what we're offering really has an audience. We were able to finance 81 projects with a budget of 2.6 million. This gave way to an increased capital value and also results. And it allowed the regional territories to have a greater impact on social and economic development of the areas that they are working in. So this has allowed me to give you an overview of what we're doing. I think it's important that we really underline the idea of reciprocity. That's why I emphasized in this presentation on the action that we are undertaking with the regional authorities and collectivities in Africa, but it also is important to see what's happening in France also within the territorial collectivities. This is why it's very important that we look at this law from the 4th of August this year that I spoke about beforehand, because it is underpinned by the ideas of partnership and reciprocity. Thank you very much for your attention. Thank you very much, Madame Ambassador. We can see what you're doing at your organization, and we can see the role of collective territories in the fight against climate change. And also, this leads us to go to Senegal to underline a common tool and a partnership that has been put together between Senegal and France. So it's with great pleasure that I give the floor to Mr. Gacha, who is a deputy at the French mayor's office, and he's also part of the a French cooperation organization. He's also a member of the platform network. So I think we see that the collective territories really meet up within this organization, and this happened over the last summer. So Mr. Ngacha, it's for you.
Je tiens tout d'abord à vous saluer et vous faire part de l'importance que j'accorde aux échanges que nous allons avoir ensemble lors de ce sommet Climate Change.
So thank you very much for inviting me here, and I would like to really thank everyone who has allowed me to work on these exchanges and the organizations. We'd like to look at what Paris is doing on an international level, and we'd like to see what Unifrance is really doing. This is the 10th year that we are working together with Dakar. It started in 2011, and then we put together the cultural exchange platform between Dakar and
Cette collaboration, excusez-moi, s'inscrit également dans un historique plus long au cœur du groupe Pays Sénégal que j'ai l'honneur cette année de présider désormais et qui depuis 20 ans était le moteur de nombreux projets qui n'ont cessé de rapprocher nos deux pays. En effet, depuis le 15 janvier 2021, j'ai été chargé en tant que président de ce groupe d'impulser un renouveau. Je suis honoré de venir rappeler ici en amont de l'intervention de ma collègue Léonore
Sorry, and to bring back the commitment of the network on the issues of climate cooperations with the various countries of Africa. A summit like this one is clearly in the approach that we want to implement, that is put the local authority back in the areas like environmental issues and the fight against climate change. In this vision, I will be organized together with the City of Paris a conference on the preservation of the Congo Basin in October 2021, a conference that will be called Initiative for the Preservation of Central African Forests. We will, of course, invite the representatives of the conferences to Dakar. Sadly, because of agenda issues, they will not be able to be present, but we'll have representatives from all the countries of the Congo fluvial basin and experts in forestry issues and a certain number of major political personalities. These experts will be able to offer a cross-cutting approach on this second biggest forest in the world. There will be an exchange of best practices, and we will be able to learn the lessons measurable at the scale of our collectivities. As the chairperson of the Senegal Countries Corporation, I also want to, as we are the vanguard of the local authorities, in order to offer the French local authorities a framework to build shared and innovating tasks on adaptation and mitigation of climate change. Among the actions to be carried out, we are convinced of the importance of the North-South cooperation and the better knowledge of the climate. For instance, we are already working in a very concrete manner with French authorities and their African partners to fight against the impacts of climate change. Among these two are very important. In April of 2021, we have co-organized a workshop on solutions for climate urgency in the Sahel region. that has allowed us to identify the challenges and the cooperation actions that were susceptible to help and to mitigate the sorry, we have a very strong noise. So we're focusing on the climate mission and with the country groups in order to prepare a solidarity initiative. We will be adding a long-term dynamic in favor of the prevention, training, and management of these ecosystems. The existence of a cooperation group between Senegal, the building of a relationship between France, Senegal, ambitious and tight in order to go against our social and environmental problem in our world. The francophone and spacement has always been, the francophonie has been the way of bringing us together since its creation in 1980 now. It's been 100 partnerships that have been realized since France and Senegal, apart from events implemented since 1992. The group is at the origin of creating a cooperation forum in Casamance in Ziguinchor in 2017. In 2013, in order to deepen the exchanges between the different numbers, we have worked together with the Solidarité and France Volontaire in order to organize thematic days on water issues, youth issues, and environmental issues. Water is a geostrategic challenge, and it's also at the heart of our environmental issues that will be discussed during the 9th edition of the 9th World Forum on Water in Dakar. Since 2016, France and Senegal have a joint system to support the decentralized cooperation, thanks to the invitation of the I've participated in the steering committee of the Franco-Senegal Council. This was the opportunity to explore the major lines that will lead our cooperation between the two countries. But Ms. Ambassadress has already presented this subject. With 5,000 local authorities are following this closely. Like heritage, education, etc. We also want to support a sustainable economic development, all topics on which I had the pleasure to discuss with Its Excellency Mr. El Hadji Magatte Sey, Ambassador of France and Senegal. It is clear that the global challenges like climate change need to be dealt with at local level. The extreme climate events that we have seen, as well as the scientific data that are more and more going to the same direction, force us to act collectively. In this optic, the 12th meetings of the International Action of Local Authorities on the 29th June 2021, organized by Cité Unie France, together with the support of MEF, Platforma, CGLU and AFT, have nourished our reflections and has allowed us to define a roadmap and work accesses, structuring work access will very soon be shared with the entire network. We will deepen and carry them up with the European networks like Platforma and worldwide like CGLU, but also political deciding authorities from high-level authorities through the diplomacy of local authorities. Via the AICT, the local authorities will be able to concert themselves in order to see emerge best practices in order to achieve carbon neutrality. Paris will also be able to share the expertise learned thanks to its ambitious climate plan that adopted in 2018 that aims for carbon neutrality in 2050. Local authorities can also share their expertise, their tools and their scientific reports and develop synergies in terms of public policies. They can also co-develop local tools of green finance in order to support projects that are favorable to energy transition and follow and monitor carbon impact. The AICT needs to see emerge innovating initiatives regarding public buildings or transport modes. 3, the city diplomacy. The local authorities give a global and multilateral scope to their environmental policy. For instance, the sustainable development goals promoted by the United Nations is recognized, and everyone is working together to meet the Agenda 2030 objectives. These examples show us that the local authorities have the expertise that is required to mobilize us. We are a space of experimentation, of best practices that can be shared and amplified. The COP26 is going to be an important moment for Africa in order to really tackle all these challenges. Thank you very much, and I hope to see you all in Glasgow. Thank you, Mr. Ngacha, particularly for having underlined all the work carried out by the city of Paris that has been catering a cooperation with Dakar in the past 10 years, and also with the CUF, Cité Unie France, and having underlined the role of the local authorities in the fight against climate change. On this, now I would like to give the word to Ms. Banos Deguisa, who is coordinating the Planet Energy at the Dakar Municipal. So now from Paris, we are going to Dakar. Sorry, Mrs. Ndayen Dakpuye Mboji. Do we have connection? We are trying to get Rokaya again. We see her, but her microphone seems to be... Rokaya, if you can see us, can you please turn on your microphone? Okay, can you hear us? Maybe take 2-3 minutes to fix that problem. Maybe we can have some question and answers. Yes, we're going to use this. Okay, we have. Ms. Sarr, can you hear me? Yes, it seems to be working. Okay, Ms. Sarr, it's up to you. Thank you to Climate Change for having invited the city of Dakar to present its experience within the Decentralized Corporation. So I'm going to start with to present you the experience of Dakar within the Decentralized Corporation in the fight against climate change. We are absolutely aware of the climate urgency. The international cities, they are mobilized in order to work out energy and climate plans. So Dakar has committed to contribute to the collective effort by implementing its own climate energy territorial plan. The elaboration of this plan is based on a financing strategy via decentralized cooperation through the major international initiatives and a partnership convention between the cities of the south and the north. To talk about the financing via the major international initiative, the city of Dakar has benefited from the support of the Convention des Maires, the Mayors' Convention, the European Union, and also C40 Cities Climate Leadership Group. So for the cooperation that came out of the Sub-Saharan Mayors' Convention, the COMSA, and the fusion of European cooperation, we have 200 African cities that are members of this cooperation network since 2015, and that allow 13 African cities to benefit from financing to implement their climate plan. And Dakar is a representative for Senegal. Dakar had submitted a project for the energy transition in order to improve the resilience of the city. This project, that is made up of 4 major axes, has allowed the city of Dakar to raise awareness with the population, technical services, and the elected members to the impacts of climate changes in urban governance, and to elaborate its climate and energy plan. So the climate plan that was developed thanks to the European Union has allowed to implement a strategy that is based on a vision of Dakar smart city and carbon sober for an inclusive development and resilient development. It is based on 7 strategic axes and 22 actions. Among them, access to climate finance is the basic strategy of this program, the backbone of this program. Sorry. For the C40, that federates the initiatives that have been implemented by the local authorities to fight against climate change. The aim is to develop and to implement political measures and programs in order to achieve a notable reductions of greenhouse gases in order to limit the climate risks after the Paris Agreement, helping the cities to develop and to commit to the implementing of climate plans, and the city of Dakar is committed to contribute to reaching the objectives, the goals, with the Paris Agreements. Countries like Senegal have registered contributions for the 2020 deadline in order to meet these Paris Agreement goals, and the cities have committed to help the states in the implementation and the agreement and the reaching of these goals. So the C40 has provided the city of Dakar an advisor in order to help with the development of the climate plan, and also international consultants in order to provide technical assistance in the planification of these climate plans. For the financing of the climate plan, through these 2 international institutions, we have been able to finance the implementing of this climate plan. If we now look at the financing cooperation between cities, the climate plan of the city of Dakar has also been benefiting from the cooperation between African cities and European cities, in this case Paris. The cooperation between the city of Dakar and the Comité d'agglomération, the conurbation of Grand Paris Sud, is part of an agreement signed between these 2 conurbations. So these 2 conurbations plus the city of Bamako and Evry and the urban conurbation of Nouakchott in Mauritania. Within this cooperation, this 3 projects have been specifically carried out: Dakar, Grand Paris Sud, and Evry, or with the other partner cities like Nouakchott. In this logic, the city of Dakar has signed a partnership convention with the Paris conurbation, since the All City Urban Center had already started the definition of their climate plan and a territorial energy plan, and had already had experience in this field. So this convention has really allowed the city of Dakar, these 2 cities, to organize the counseling missions and coaching missions and best practice definition within the elaboration of the climate plan for the city of Dakar and the energy access plan for the Paris, the cooperation between Paris and Dakar. So within the experience sharing and this partnership, we had a certain number of best practices sharing in order of the implementation of a climate and energy plan, and also exchange around the various missions of the environmental center that is being implemented by the Paris City Hall in order to mobilize and train and raise awareness with young people in the schools, etc., and also exchange around the implementation of a participative methodology, the PCAT conference within the. So we've really done a diagnostic on risks of climate risks among all the 19 different Dakar neighborhoods. This was really an innovation, and this was shared with the Paris Conurbation. So also within the Mayors Convention, of Sub-Saharan Mayors Convention, the COMSA had organized a certain number of activities of best practice sharing and capacity building. The cities who are part of the convention would receive the financing, and also the cities that have not yet received the financing. And we have participated in a number of activities and experience sharing, like best practices sharing of the cities during the Climate Chance Summit in 2018 and 2019, and also capacity building workshops on the sustainable energy access and climate. And I would like to thank Eva Baños, who was part of the team who has participated in the capacity building of the team within the climate chance. There is a telephone. So to now speak about how do we plan to finance this Dakar Climate Action Plan through decentralized cooperation, we have implemented a strategy for financing the Climate Action Plan of the city of Dakar. This was implemented in 2021. We have set up a strategy that will allow us to implement this climate plan by the city of Dakar. And the financing of this plan is based on a combination of various sources of financing, like our own funds, national funds, and international funds coming from public, private, bilateral, and multilateral sources. Because we want to make, the aim is to make of Dakar a smart city, a carbon neutral city for an inclusive and resilient development. So that requires the Horizon 2050. This requires the implementation of a good mobilization strategy, of resource mobilization strategy, with a variety of partners, financial and technically. Based on our lessons learned, Dakar has implemented a strategy of financing based on financing initiatives to finance adaptation and mitigation initiatives, decentralized corporations, together with various cities around the world, international organizations, but also awareness raising and advocacy for resource attribution for all the programs focused on climate change and energy transition. I'm talking about this because we at Senegal level, we have implemented within the decentralization strategy. So the local authorities have seen their mandate extended, and so for example, Dakar, we have 19 local authorities. In order to be able to work with these decentralized authorities, we need to have structuring projects, which we are implementing in cooperation to implement. Since Dakar has already elaborated its climate energy plan, so we want to help this city raise funds in order to finance their climate initiatives. As we all know, we have a very long coastline along the city of Dakar, which we are sharing with the other local cities and conurbations that are part of the Dakar region. So to finish, I would say that the resource mobilization strategy is based on a shared vision of the action priorities with a large, as wide as possible range of partners, financial partners, government, international financial institutions, foundations, companies, etc. And sustainable partnerships in order to guarantee a stability in resource raising, in order to meet the objectives, be it international, national, or municipal, in the fight against climate change and the goals, sustainable development goals. Reinforcement of capacities within the city in the planification and climate finance, access to different forms of fundraising, execution and accounting of financial and of course monitoring of results. We have the cooperation between different international activities from COMSA 340, Green Fund, etc. We do not yet have access to all these funds, so we need to reinforce our initiatives so that we can access to these finance in order to be able to implement our climate fund. Also the reinforcement of cooperation via the major international initiatives like the COMSA, the C40, AIMF, ICLEI and CGLUA. We already have developed this cooperation since in the past 10 years, but it's important to continue to reinforce this cooperation. Other initiatives have already been mentioned by the other speakers: cooperation between the city of Paris and city of Dakar, cooperation between the city and Dakar and other collaboration, and the major cooperations between Dakar and the AIMF or ICLEI, the C40 and of course the COMSA of Sub-Saharan Mayors Convention. So the city of Dakar already has EU financing within the phase 2 of the COMSA that allows us to work towards the implementation of a climate energy plan that we have voted on in March of this year. But we also have another project that has been financed with Metropolis and the city of Naugic, financed by the European Union for the implementation of the metropolitan governance projects for energy transition. And this project has been benefited from a EU financing, but it's not yet started yet. We are planning to start this year if God is willing. Thank you very much for your attention. And sorry, I have a connection problem, so I had some slight sound problems. Thank you for your interesting intervention, partly for the very concrete information that really give a concrete case study of a cooperation on a climate energy plan for your city for the coming 5 years with the support of the Sub-Saharan Mayors Convention, but also very interesting of a quadripartite cooperation between Le Breno, Nouakchott, Dakar and Paris, which is also a very interesting example of good cooperation. I would like to transmit a question of one of our participants to your Honorable Ambassador Christine Moreau, especially linked to the Natural Congress on Biodiversity in Marseille, in the context of sustainable development. So the question is, have you planned to do the link between its call for tenders and the fight against climate change and biodiversity? Can you answer this question, please, by any chance? Any projects linked to biodiversity are welcome on our call for tenders. There's no need for specific initiatives or wait for any specific steps. All our call for tenders they run from September to March. So of course the next window of opportunity will be end of the year 2021 for the year 2022, and but we'll be very happy to also have projects concerning with climate change, but also the preservation of biodiversity. And I also would like to mention a program that we have that it's called Expect, that it's kind of a play on word on expertise of territorial collectivities. As you know, the French love acronyms, and we have a number of local authorities, territorial collectivities that are labelized within this program on nature in the urban environment, biodiversity in the urban environment. So if there are specific needs and urgent needs, we can also answer these needs through this program, which is very flexible in its agenda. And if there's any specific demands coming from African local authorities, I invite them to discuss, to contact their local French embassy in order to see how we can use this program. Thank you very much, Ambassador, for this very concrete information. I see Antoine who wants to mention something. Yes, Senator Dantec, who is president of Climate Change, who would like to say some words. Yes, maybe I just wanted to add a word to the fact that in Marseille last we spoke with Platforma. We had and Platforma was very active on this event with the various local authorities. And the afternoon was dedicated to there's not many projects yet, but there's already some projects in that, like for instance, what the Île-de-France region is doing in some country where there is a protection of a chimpanzee population. Here's another project in Madagascar. So this was the opportunity for me to insist on the fact is that we need to work on both prongs, climate and biodiversity. And that is really a place where the French local authorities can play a role based on their expertise. We can, of course, rely on a certain number of the climate compensation funds also in biodiversity projects. And I think that this is part of the topics on which we'll be able to work on these issues of biodiversity and biodiversity corridors, for instance. I think this is part of it's part of the work axis of maybe the representative of the Paris City Council. We could maybe insist on this issue of cooperation of climate action plans at the service of biodiversity. This is really a trending topic. We will come back to it in the coming. We've talked longly about it in Marseille, and it was clearly explicit in the final declaration, which is the first world declaration of local authorities on the topics of biodiversity. Thank you very much, Mr. Senator, for that. I hope it's going to answer the question of the topic, which is on this very important topic. Also in the context of the fight against climate change. But we would like also to raise the issue of carbon neutrality. And I would like to invite Eva Baños de Guisasola, who is advisor for the CCRE who is going to present the Platforma note on tackling climate change through decentralized cooperation. This note will be available for download in the chat. You can already see the download link. Eva, the microphone is yours. Thank you, Boris, and thank you everyone for this opportunity to exchange with you and to Renan. Platforma is part of climate change from the very beginning, so we're very happy to be part of this discussion. Thank you to Mr. Gacha and Ms. Moreau for your very interesting and relevant interventions. I wanted to speak a little bit about this note that we've published within Platforma in the plenary on the. This is a topic that starts with the link between decentralized cooperation and climate change. We've prepared this note for the month of May because we're not supposed to meet the European Parliament members. We said it was probably the good moment to speak about this. It's a thematic note that addresses people that are policymakers at all levels. It's also inspired on exchange of best practice. It's not a question of regulation. It's also the exchange of best practices. This is where we're learning most. It's really a good moment to share this note with you and also learn from each other, because we are living in a moment where we cannot allow ourselves to waste our resources, be they human resources or financial resources. So everything we can link, we learn from this exchange. So the thematic note really talks about the reality of the climate change. The reality is clear. The second point is the role of local authority and regional authorities. What is their role in decentralized cooperation? And the third point is the support of the European Union for these local authorities. And the first point of this thematic note, which you can refer to. So when I say that, it's clear that climate change is real, but you cannot just speak about climate change mitigation. You also need to talk about climate change adaptation. This is two things that need to go together. You can't mention one without the other. But the main difficulties is to make actors and citizens aware of that the two concepts go hand in hand. How can we get all the stakeholders to work together? At European level, we're working to organize campaigns to share our experience, share with and raise awareness with for all the actors and citizens, so that they can participate and get mobilized in the fight against climate change. So in the global context, we have the Paris Agreement. I'm very happy to see our colleagues from Paris. We know that you're very committed in that. We are also committed on our side in order to implement this climate agreement. We've already participated, already drafted a message for the next COP in Glasgow. We hope to see you there. We also have we've already have a legislative and regulatory framework, but that's not enough. There's also the common responsibility between the EU and the partner countries and the developing countries, and each stakeholder has a specific goal. Of course, they need the accompanying financial resources, and we include all this in the global framework, because we have seen that there's at least 65% of the 169 targets underpinning the 17 SDGs, and that cannot reach without engagement and coordination in local and regional governments. So we can already see within the pandemic that this has placed the local authorities and regional authority governments in a very clear situation of responsibility, but we cannot ignore and only focus on the situation we are by leaving aside the climate crisis. The climate crisis is even more an opportunity to transform the policy into green policies in terms of resilience. The society will become more green, more resilient. That is already something we're seeing. We at the local, and because of that, we already see that we need to create this regular dialogue between the member states and the local authorities. Without this structuring dialogue, we cannot have changes in the strategy. For instance, we at local level, we work together with within the United Nations Convention, which is called the local authorities and global authorities constituency, and within this framework we work in partnership with European authorities and networks, and we have our French number like the FCCRE. We have also worked very closely with CUF. So this is with CUF. This is really a very clear examples of how these partnerships work. But we also see how, built on these relationships that we between Europe and the rest of the world. So there was another point I wanted to mention, is the support that the European Union is providing within this framework. We've seen more and more cooperation between vulnerable regions and cities. At European level, we have followed a file on the vulnerable populations and in developing countries, and that was a report of the EU Commission of 2020 on energy precarity and the impact on population and public services. At European level, we've also developed a the global European instrument for the period 2021-2027, and the aim is to achieve more and more to help the stakeholders. For instance, there's a budget, an envelope of 500 million. One big part is devoted to climate change. And this is the first time that local and regional governments will benefit from this. This is really related to the climate, so really have
le reste du monde, donc c'est de l'Europe vers le reste du monde. Et on voit aussi que les autorités locales-là, ils sont une responsabilité plus on doit encore améliorer au niveau européen. On a vu que des fois, il y a des cafés légaux. Et en Europe, on a pas mal de cafés légaux. Mais
in Europe, we have a certain number of case studies, but there is some framework that is missing, so we still need to adjust it in a number of countries. We also have the experience with many African countries, as you already been mentioned. So with the Covenant of Mayors, we have seen that there's really there's a number of countries that have really strong and deep links with some of the member countries. So we need to really maintain this dialogue and widen it and to share it with other countries where this dialogue is not yet implemented, or at least not at a deep level. So we always seen that there is this global aspect that we need to continue work on. And we also seen the launch of the Green Deal, the launch in 2019 of the Green Deal. That is a European, very strong European deal, was really the most important aim for the European Commission, is to make the European continent to be the greenest and the most sustainable climate, with the different legislation to really become a carbon neutral continent in 2050. The Green Deal is now accompanied by a package in order to have to reach our SDG goals, and in order to reach this global objective of climate neutral by 2050. Hoping that all the continents in the world also meet this objective in order to really meet the Paris Agreement. So we have worked with the Covenant of Mayors Europe, the African Covenant of Mayors. We also work a lot on. We also follow the European strategy for climate mitigation. That is that also is not only a European dimension, also has international dimension, because they also have announced the support facility policy in order for capacity building across the world. So we see more and more the added value of these exchanges between institutions and the stakeholders. We've also collaborated with all the city to city cooperation. We've seen this, for instance, like the city of Karlsruhe in Germany and Kampala. Paris has mentioned also the bilateral cooperation. So we see that this is very impactful. It allows us not only have good relationships, but also understand the relationship between the various cities that we have partnership with. It's very important to know the geostrategic political and geostrategic situation of each partner. So at European level, we have the urban and regional cooperation program. Then before it used to be called the International Urban Cooperation Program. It's been now widened to the regional cooperation. So all these aspects, you can see them in the thematic note, and there's lots of links which allows you to go more into detail. And I also would like to raise the importance of capacity building, because we have seen, based on our experience with the Sub-Saharan Covenant of Mayors, that the cities sometimes lack this expertise. So it's really fundamental to create these links in order to reinforce the technical capacity of the cities, and so it needs to be worked very closely together with technical expertise in order to implement these plans. And the last point I wanted to mount is the reference framework for sustainable cities. This is a very important tool to see where the city stands in terms of sustainability and environmental. It's kind of a checklist where you can see what are the points that needs to be improved and things that need to be developed further. So I just wanted to share this experience with you, and you're available if you have any questions. So in the link, the chat, you can find the links to download this technical note. Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Eva, for this contribution. You have really well explained the goal of fighting climate change, and the carbon neutrality is really a global overall overarching aim of the Green Deal and the European institution, always by underlining the added value of city-city exchange of expertise in order to reinforce the technical capacity. That is one of the very important challenge in the cities in the territorial governments in Africa. I also would like to pass the microphone to Mr. Ngacha, who wanted to say a few words. Yes, thank you. I'm not going to go very much. Mr. Senator, I just wanted to add, hello, I just wanted, sorry, I forgot, I did not see you, so I did not salute you. Of course, we are absolutely interested by any goodwill, any associated initiative that we're organizing together with the City Hall, and I'd be very happy to work together with you if you have any points you want to work on. There is a roundtable in our event that will be on biodiversity. It's called Live My Biodiversity in the City specifically. So there will be a big plenary, opening plenary, and a roundtables where the experts will participate, and local elected members, because this initiative on the forest will be held together with the IMF, the French Mayor's Covenant. And my aim would be to not just give lessons from countries that are faced with deforestation, but more be in a constructive exchange to see what their needs are, to confront them in the solutions that exist and that are being implemented. So this round table will be the opening moment after the plenary on this, and they will be presided by Madame the Mayor of Paris on the workshop on biodiversity. I'm at your disposal if you want to discuss this further, this initiatives of Paris on the forests.
Thank you for this answer concerning biodiversity, also concerning environmental protection and the fight against climate change. So Mr. Antoine Gillot, who is the coordinator of the Observatory of Climate Change, I'd like to give the floor to him to look at carbon neutrality and what are the challenges for international cooperation, especially concerning cities and the local authorities. Thank you very much. And these presentations have been very good. Carbon neutrality has been undertaken for the last 3 years by the Observatory in partnership with the Foreign Ministry here in France. And we look at how local authorities in France and Africa, in their decentralization cooperation, really put in place the neutrality projects. Madame Moreau spoke about projects that are really fostering cities in putting in place these important projects. We started in 2015, 2016, and we put together a small analysis to look at how the local authorities included in their projects of reducing greenhouse gas emissions or their adaptation to climate change. Following this analysis, we spoke with the local authorities. At the end of 2019, 2020, we put together some ateliers in partnership with CUF and other organizations, in which we looked at all of the various facets of climate change in a very modest way, looking at simple concepts, clear definitions. And we were able to identify with the various representatives with all stakeholders, including NGOs. We were able to look at the needs of the local authorities in including this carbon neutrality concept in decentralized cooperation. At the very beginning, there was a lot of requests, and we put together, it was a new tool, voluntary and regulatory, or regulatory. We put it together with a lot of carefulness, a lot of demands, and Madame Moreau was able to speak about the link up between decentralized cooperation and climate. So we put together two training sessions and to look, or not training sessions, two concepts, the idea of decentralized cooperation and carbon neutrality. And we will continue to work on this over the next few months. And Clémentine Larat represents another association. And we welcome all of the various organizations who'd like to work on this topic with us. So what is the challenge of carbon neutrality? In Paris, the limit was set at 2 degrees. And they set the limit was at 2 degrees, whereas the hope was at 1.5 degrees. So this led to various assessments as to which possibilities would lead to us to be able to achieve these goals of either 1.5 or 2 degree increase in temperatures of the world. And we had to then reduce the greenhouse gas emissions to the amount that could be absorbed by either the oceans or the forests. These are called the carbon wells. We know that the greenhouse gases move around the world. So it's important to do it on a company level, a local level, but it's also important to do it at a very global level. And that's why cooperation amongst the various worldwide countries is very important through the various undertakings, not only at the mayor level, but also at the decentralized level. This leads to multilateral undertakings. That's why all these international organizations play a very important role to put in place and to move forward on a global level to finally achieve this carbon neutrality, to reduce greenhouse gases, to work together to absorb them, to capture them and sequester the gases. It's a tool that it touches upon many aspects that we won't be able to look at today. But and then on a third level, to compensate the countries or the organizations that do this work, to certify them and also to compensate them. We have to finance projects which will lead to a reduction in greenhouse gas emissions. And also, so we have to finance the various products that would lead to the reduction. So the challenge is very great. It's a financing challenge, it's a cooperation challenge, it's a dialogue and local dialogue challenge. We also know what are the risks concerning this topic. We have to wild the forest, reforest. So what are the consequences? We have to know what the consequences are for biodiversity. So all of these things will be looked at over the next autumn and winter when we put together these ateliers that I already spoke to you about. And we will ask that French and African elected representatives, NGOs, scientists, experts, will all come together as various stakeholders and give us some information about this topic. So, Madame Larat will be able to give us the conclusions that of the atelier that we held last summer in CUF. So it's a very important challenge for all areas of the world, which can be solved through decentralized cooperation concerning climate cooperation. Of course, a city emits more greenhouse gases, but at the same time, we have to look at ways to really concentrate them and treat the problem and solve the problem. And this is also a question that has to be looked at by the rural areas and also the mid-sized cities, so that they can also try to achieve carbon neutrality, not only at these local and rural areas, but also nationally and globally. We looked at the international action plan of the local authorities. We looked at this in June, and I think Madame Larat will be able to tell us what were the conclusions that came forth following this meeting that we had in June. Good evening, everyone. Thank you to the organizers of this panel. It's an NGO working in the energy transitions. We also had non-governmental organizations who are also working on the question of energy transition. So to answer the question that Antoine asked about the conclusions, with the international action of the local authorities concerning neutrality, the atelier was an explorative mission because it's a topic that hasn't really been looked at a lot, but there's a lot of interest in it. And we tried to put together recommendations, best practices concerning this subject. And we really put them, regrouped them into three main stages: measure, reduce, compensate. So these are three stages. And amongst the recommendations that were published on our website concerning decentralized cooperation, there's one measure that we can keep in mind. I think it's a big challenge and it will have a large value addition. This is the need for methodological accompaniment for the local authorities concerning this question. And I think this is why what Madame Moreau said was really important, is that the reciprocity is really important. No country, no area is the perfect student in measuring its carbon neutrality. That's why it's necessary to exchange the best practices that were observed in the various countries and local authorities. So considering reduce, stage 2. Various undertakings have been done in the various sectors. Also, this concerns policies that the governments can put in place, for example, renewable energies and greening of the cities. There are many things that can be done. And this can give way to concrete projects, which can be then financed by carbon financing. This is stage 3, compensate. So when you've gone through all of the action leverages for reducing greenhouse gas emissions, then we move towards compensation. So there are some advantages and disadvantages, but there are limits too. The length and the cost of the projects and the length and the amount of time that the projects take to be accredited. So from how long it takes for the projects to actually start up and then to when they're actually accredited as to what they're doing to reduce to achieve carbon neutrality. Because once it's accredited, this leads to financing, and we hope that the financing should be long term. Maybe it should go on for a few decades, the financing. So this financing is a leverage for actually obtaining or achieving goal of carbon neutrality. And I think that decentralized cooperation could work in helping these project managers, especially in Africa, to evolve in their accreditation pathways, which would then help them enter into the carbon market and actually be compensated for their contributions. So there is an information platform called Info Compensation Carbone, in which you can find a lot of information concerning compensation, not only for the actual stakeholders, but also for the purchasers of these carbon credits. Thank you very much. So thank you very much for your contributions, Monsieur Antoine and Madame Larat. Who, Madame Larat is one of the project managers at GERES in international action. So, are there any people who'd like to ask a question or a comment? Mr. Antoine, thank you. I'd like to thank all the participants, especially those who didn't have enough time, for example, Mr. Gacha. One of the topics brought up by Clémentine, there was spoken about at our atelier in June of this year, is action concerning greenhouse gases. We'll look at this tomorrow at one of our ateliers at 11:30 in Paris, or at noon in Paris. I'm not exactly sure. Sorry, 1 p.m. in Paris, 11 a.m. in Dakar, concerning the action of non-state stakeholders in this domain. So there are many stakeholders from Africa and Europe that will be at the panel. We will talk about the various undertakings and initiatives to help us understand the question, maybe have new projects, really understand what the impact of so maybe we can encourage local authorities from getting involved in this. Thank you very much. Thank you very much to the panelists who already had to leave this meeting. I think the senator is still here, and Mr. Ngacha also has been, so we thank all of these people. Mr. Ngacha had to leave us early because he had other engagements. But are there any other questions? If not, then I don't see any other questions or comments. I'd like to thank all of the participants and panelists who followed this debate, but also gave presentations and informations. And thank you to Madame Eva, Madame Larat, Monsieur Antoine, Madame Roquia, and the senator is still with us here today. So thank you to everyone, both panelists and participants, to this very fruitful discussion, not only concerning discussion, but also exchanges concerning the fight against climate change and the challenges related with carbon neutrality, all this looking towards 2030 by all of us. Thank you. Thank you very much for the moderation. Thank you to the atelier. And tomorrow the meeting or this summit continues. And we have to keep in mind that tomorrow at the closing ceremonies, the mayors of both Poitiers and Dakar will be present. And so thank you very much from Climate Chance. Thank you.